Hey teachers, Haley here at Teacher's Pet. I'm here with our course sort of build and show series where I've just been walking through how I'm using the Teacher's Pet tools and just kind of my thinking and thought process to set up an online asynchronous course that will be running in the fall semester. And so in this video, just kind of building on part 2. This is part 3, building on part 2 where I really got the main schedule figured out. Really in that same work session and flow is when I also really figured out what my projects are going to look like and setting up the module. So in this part 2, that's what I'm going to, flip over and show you how I built that and really kind of just what those projects were looking like as I was converting them over from, my headspace and sort of my course building spreadsheet. And then next we'll be able to kind of get into the projects themselves. So if you like that course building spreadsheet, you can get your own over at teacherspet.tech, as well as just a bunch of project kind of assignment sheet templates and everything from our library. All right, let's flip around and I'll show you what I've been working on. All right, so I'm, starting out in my course building spreadsheet where I had done the semester kind of workflow and mapping, and I'm really returning and thinking about the projects themselves. And really, as I'm creating the semester maps, that and the projects, they go, hand in hand and inform each other. But I'm back in my outcome list that we had actually started in episode 1 of this series because as I was creating the semester map, I had new ideas that kind of changed my mind a little bit on the assignments. So I need to realign them right to the learning outcomes with these new kind of ideas. So I was actually paring back the project and some kind of new ideas there, which means that, just breaking up exactly the skills that they're sort of practicing and assessing a little bit different. And since every single unit, they will be doing these project completion reports, that also means every unit will also get more of that outcome about assessing the effort through that every single time, which would be good. And their projects are much more about practicing these skills as we go through, because everything will be graded essentially complete, incomplete, and they'll just be revising again, practicing until they sort of get it right in more of that kind of mastery sort of grade book in view. So then I just needed to update a few more things in my map as I again had sort of decided and rethought a little bit about what they're turning in. So every week, right, they're gonna submit a mind map, essentially kind of their notes. So again, since I won't be there in person to guide them through stuff, wanted to have a nice weekly checkpoint to make sure that they're picking up on the concepts in the correct way. So they'll just turn in very low stakes, hey, basically upload, I'll create kind of a guide and a note-taking sheet, which should be easy prep and feasible prep for me because I do have these kind of note-taking guides from when I was preparing my lectures for the in-person version. So I'll be kind of, converting a lot of that, I think, fairly quickly into their guides. Okay, so then I also know they'll have a weekly culture case study. So I just went ahead and input a lot of areas and countries that I know I want them to do some research on just for their, current significance. And then I have a few in there where they can pick their own because I also want them to go off and explore kind of their own countries and interests and not dictate everything. So they will get to choose their own 4 times as we also operate around some major players or just significant kind of countries. So then I'm kind of back in my learning outcomes, figuring out, okay, well, they'll have their unit exercises, their pre-check quizzes, mind maps, all of that. I'm starting to feel really good about how it's shaping up and what those projects are looking like. And I kind of decided the mini activities, and they just need to get it done. It's just in the unit, it's self-paced. I recommend and have recommended sort of timeline due dates of if I was taking the class when I would want to get them done to not be stressed, but as long as they, they just have to get it done kind of in that package. So I have an MIT mini course, which I'll link in the description because it's really great on just kind of media literacy and some kind of Gen AI stuff there that the folks at MIT put together. So that will be one that they'll need to complete. And then I'm also going to make, kind of a HTML playground, which will be an assignment that I actually create and set up for them. And then some stuff for the tech and tool setup that they'll need, just those little activities that really will build to their big projects and help them kind of along their journey. So then in kind of the bottom portion of the spreadsheet is where I actually map out. And again, for this class, it's just suggested timelines. For other forms of classes, it would be mapping out the actual due dates just to keep track. And that part I can often also like copy and paste, right? When I'm finally done with all these spreadsheets and I'll, finish everything, make them look the way I want, change the color schemes, all that. Then I just copy and paste these into my syllabus. It's just like really easy, kind of nice way for them to see the different schedule impacts. So yeah, then just really go through and fill out over and over again, okay, what are all of the projects? When are they going to be due? So that way I have that really nice, clear map set up. For me, everything is going to be graded as complete, incomplete, but I am noting the assignment type to help me actually set it up and build it in Canvas. So some things are going to be quizzes. Some things I know will be a file submission assignment. I'm going to be using a tool called Hypothesis for their reading guides or kind of mind map reading guides. So that way they can basically annotate a comment and see each other's comments. So it'll be a nice kind of asynchronous moment to be reminded they have classmates to build off of. And some will just be pages that get marked as complete. So I wanted to note that down just to make my process easier when I hop into Canvas. So let's do that next, which is actually setting up kind of what the Canvas shell ends up looking like in all my point bundles. Okay. So I have my Canvas shell, kind of, split screen with my quiz, and I just can go through and I'm in my, assignments, creating different groups for that. And yeah, I can just go through and say, okay, I know that this one is going to be an assignment, this one is going to be a discussion, this one is going to be a quiz, and I'm able to just very quickly rock and roll through that. At this stage, I'm not worried about actually building out the assignments. I like to just get the core structure of it down so I can get, kind of the mechanics behind Canvas done, and then I go through and apply the design actually as one of my last steps in that process. And so, yeah, I'm just, going through, adding, all of the different, of the, like reading material pages. All that's not very exciting. You know how to like update things into Canvas, but it takes a minute. So I think the next big thing is now that I have just, again, all the assignments and projects themselves, just, the placeholders, now I can actually set up the module so that way it will work for my progressive bundles. And so that's where, yeah, I'm just going through and basically saying, like, you need to complete all the content. I'm not sure if I'll do it in order yet. We'll see how the final thing turns out. But you have to complete all the content before you can move on to the next bundle. And so that way, kind of unlocking means that you have done all of the tasks and have earned, a C, a B, an A. So I just go through and do that for all of my modules and units. And then the last thing that I have to do is go in and set each one right as a prerequisite. So that way it won't unlock until they've, completed all the tasks. And then I go into my settings. So that way I can set up a new grading scheme to make this all kind of work a little bit nicer. So I go into manage grading schemes, set up a brand new one. And this is where, and I love this tool if you've never used it, you can just make it whatever you want. You can make it completely custom. And so this is also where you could put things like complete needs revisions, for different projects and assignments. Or, you can put, in this case, I'm just doing like my A, B plus B, C plus C, D, F grading scheme. And this took me a little bit because I had to do kind of some thinking in math and also be testing this out in Student View to make sure I did it correctly. But basically, right, I don't want to be off percentage, it's points. And in order for them to see it, every single one of my assignments, every task they need to complete is just worth 1 point. And they'll just see, complete, incomplete. And so not only, right, do they need to complete everything to unlock the next building bundle, which will unlock their next grade, but they need to get, kind of through, and if they do half of the next bundle, then they can level up. So that was kind of the problem I needed to solve here. So in my little spreadsheet, I'm like thinking, okay, like, how many points are in each unit? And if they obviously earn that many points, okay, then they know that they've unlocked one letter. How many, would half credit on those be? And I'm going ahead and rounding up since, some of my full points are odd numbers. So that way they have to do, just over sort of half. And if they can't even get half of the next unit done, they don't level up their grade. So it ends up being, 43 points, right, is kind of the total. So in order to get an A, you have to have completed every single thing in the class, because that's how you worked through the entire progressive bundle set. So, 44 to 43 is an A. But if you get all of units 1 and 2 plus half of unit 3, that equals 34 points. So if you have 34 or more points, then you have a B plus until you hit that 43 for an A, and you've completed everything. And then I just kind of keep going through that. So to get a B, you have to have completed everything in unit 1, everything in unit 2, which is 36 points. And I keep going. If you completed everything in unit 1 plus half of unit 2, that's like 27 points of stuff. And I'm just going to keep going. Though I think I do run into a little math problem that I have to redo again, because I was like, wait a minute, these points are kind of working out. But that's basically how I set up my grading scheme. So that way, as students are progressing through the bundles, they will also see, their grade improving and increasing, but not necessarily in that kind of percentage-based way. All right. Some of the hard parts of this class are definitely, coming together now that I have those like kind of projects and everything mapped out into Canvas. So that feels really, really good. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, definitely like let me know, share them, especially with, how are you setting up your projects and units this semester? I'm definitely curious to know that. Okay, so now in part 4, so the next video, we are going to actually set up some of the rubrics and import them into Canvas. I'll be wearing the same outfit again because all of this just happened right in the same kind of workflow, workday. I was really able to accomplish all of this work kind of with the help, right, of speeding some of this up and just having that plan and mapped out. So we'll, I'll see you over there in that video. But until then, I hope that you have a great class. Thank you.